All right. Well, hello and welcome everyone to Networks Live on Demand. I'm Liz Jones, the Blue Star Family Solutions Manager. This year we did something with USAA. We partnered with them to bring you a series of webinars that focus on the military family and their financial readiness. In May, we did a webinar that focused on buying or renting a home. And if you would like to view that webinar, you can go to our Blue Star Families Facebook page and it's under videos, or you can view it on our YouTube channel, and we'll make sure that the link is in the description and posted in the comments and also in the chat box. Excuse me. But today's webinar is actually about separating from the military through retirement or separation or just plain old getting out. We have Ingrid Bruns here from USAA to talk to us about everything. Ingrid is an advice director with USAA. She is a military spouse and just recently went through the retirement process with her husband. We did something a little bit different this time. Usually we ask for questions during the webinar. We asked for questions before the webinar. So if you submitted a question, Ingrid is going to try and answer that. If you have other things that pop up during the webinar, you can ask them. If you're joining us via Zoom, you can use the chat box or you can use the question and answer box. If you're joining us via Facebook, you can put in the comments and we're going to try and get to them later. With that, I will turn it over to Ingrid. Hey, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Liz. It's great to be here. Yes, we just went through our own retirement after 29 and a half years. It was quite an ordeal, as you know, as you're going through it now. My husband just retired in November, and he is on his second job after the military, second career, but really the second job, because a lot of service members do switch jobs a couple times within the first year or two after military, because it can be challenging. But I am here really to talk about what our members or what the military community needs, especially from the spouse's perspective as they're leaving the military. There's a lot that changes. There's a lot of things that impact your finances, and USAA has some tools that we can help manage that and help you make an informed decision when you're going through those challenges. So I'd like to just kind of dive into it and go from there.
Awesome, thanks. So I think the first group of questions that we had to do with saving for retirement or saving for separation. How much is too much? When do you start? All of that.
That's a great question, and we get that question a lot. And it's a different conversation if you're after 4 years separating from the military, or if you're after 20 years and you're retiring from the military. Those are two different conversations, but everybody, no matter who you are, needs to have some kind of savings in place before you leave the military. And when you join the military, at some point, everybody will get out. Whether you are separating or retiring, there will be a time that you have to get out. So the best time to start planning for that is when you join, right? We talk about having an emergency fund quite a bit, and an emergency fund is always a good idea, no matter what stage in life you're at. But when you're transitioning from the military, there's additional costs that you may incur. There may be a delay in the last retirement or the last paycheck. There may be a delay in starting to get your pension. And then there may be a delay in getting that next job. So you need to be prepared for those, for that time, that transition, and ensure that you're ready to take care of yourself and your family through that gap.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's one of the main questions that we got in our email response was people just wanted to know exactly how much was too much. So another question that was hot topic was about that SBP, the Survivor's Benefit Plan, especially for retirees. Well, pretty much only for retirees.
Right. So that would be for retirees, and it's really it is a hot topic. It is a very controversial subject. I'm a member on a lot of Facebook pages, Facebook groups, and there's a lot of conversation that stems around that. So I'll share my situation, and then I'll kind of share some ideas of what you need to consider if you're thinking about taking it or not taking it. So SBP is Survivor Benefit Plan, and what that means is you're taking out an insurance as a military spouse to help cover a loss of retirement income if something would happen to your military spouse after retirement. So this is only for retirees. They have to be drawing a pension, and then you have this option to purchase this insurance. So the spouse definitely has a say in whether or not the service member opts in or opts out of it. As a matter of fact, you have to sign a paper if that service member decides to opt out, saying that you're okay with that, because it's really about protecting you as a military spouse in the future. So it can be very expensive. We're paying several $100s a month for it. For our situation, we took full SBP. But at the end of the day, if God forbid something happened to my husband at this point, now that he's pulling a pension, I would be able to continue to get about 55% of that retirement income for the rest of my life. We're gambling that, something might happen to him beforehand. We're hoping not, obviously. We hope we both live to be 100 years old, if that's possible. But it's an insurance plan, because we have a home now. We have our forever home. We have grown children that may or may need help in the future, and I will definitely need to take care of myself financially if something should happen to him. So this is really an insurance program to take care of the survivor, and that's what really life insurance is about. It's about taking care of your loved ones. So some people think that they can go out and buy an insurance policy, a life insurance policy, to cover the what if something, to cover that SBP plan. And for some people, that may be an option. I know there's really two examples that really come to mind if you're looking at opting out. One of them would be is if your civilian spouse has a medical condition that may shorten his or her life. That would be a situation where maybe you would opt out of SBP because it may not be in your favor to pay that premium, and then with the likelihood that you're not going to get a return on it. The other one would be and this is certainly not my case, that's why we're taking SBP, is if your civilian spouse is independently wealthy, has, is an heir to a family income, or, has just, done super well by having a career and, has put away their own money, which, I'm like most spouses that would be on here. I have a patchwork resume. I've done jobs here and there. And now at this point in my life, I'm finally starting my career, but it's not given me the opportunity to build up a huge retirement income for myself. I see there's a question.
There is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true. So if you opt out of the SBP and your retiree passes away, that pension stops, and the surviving spouse does not get anything at that point, as far as that pension is concerned.
So I know there is a lot of misinformation out there about it. So if you do end up with the SBP and paying the premiums, and then unfortunately your spouse passes away, you only get 55% of that.
That's correct.
Not the full
amount. So say, for instance, and you can also just insure a portion of your military spouse's retirement. So say, for instance, their military retirement income is $1,000 per month, and you want to do full insurance. So that would be taking $1,000 a month and insuring that full amount. You would, as a surviving spouse, get $550 a month as that 55%. However, if you don't think that you need that much, and maybe only a portion of it, but you just still need some, you can insure a smaller amount of that pension and still get 55% of that. So, and that changes the premium. And that's why some people do choose that, maybe because they, have other savings and don't need the full amount. But, for some people, they really do need that full amount.
Well, thank you for that, because I feel like I've been reading about it forever, and everything I've read is so confusing. I'm just like, oh, stop. But
it is very confusing. And I have a couple suggestions for that. One, or military spouses have a transition assistance program that they're required to go through as they're leaving the military, whether they're retiring or separating. And in that, they do get people to come in and brief specifically about that program and the ins and outs of it. It is really a great idea for the military spouse, the civilian spouse to join the military spouse at those briefings. It's about 4 days long these days, and it's really helpful to have two sets of ears, two sets of eyes listening in and taking those notes. And then if you still have questions at the end, because every person's situation is different, that is when you would probably need to talk to someone on a personal level, one-to-one. The military and family readiness centers on each of the installations has a financial counselor that's available to talk to. They can't give you specifics on where you should, who you should work with and things like that, but they can give you a good high level of, here's the things that you need to think about. Here are the things that you should be doing financially to get your affairs in order. So, and then if you need any more specific, then you can reach out to, there's an SBP site that has that information. You can get more information.
Awesome. Thank you. Another thing that came up quite a bit was the talk of insurance. There's a lot of misinformation about SGLI, VGLI, term, policy. So it's very, very confusing when you sit down and you try to figure all of that out.
Yes, it can be. And especially for, a family like mine, I didn't even have my own life insurance policy until after I had my second child. And someone said to me, well, what if something happened to you? Oh, it was like the light bulb went on. Well, of course, my spouse is going to need to have help if something happens to me to raise these children, and there's a gap. Even if I'm not working at this moment, there's still a gap in that family. So it can be very overwhelming. And I'll share that at USAA, I'm not licensed to sell or have any interest in the life insurance program, but on a high level, what I'd like to share is that it's important. It's important to take care of your family. And what I said before, life insurance is really not about you. It's about the people that you care about that would be left behind if something happened to you. So as a civilian spouse, I always say military spouse, but the civilian spouse, it's really important whether you are working or not working, if you have kids or not have kids, if there's something that you contribute to the household, there's a good reason for you to have a life insurance policy, because if something happens to you, your surviving spouse needs to fill that gap. Now, for the service member, as they're leaving the military, let me back up. As they're in the military and they're active duty, they're entitled to service members group life insurance, which is SGLI. You might have heard of that. And you can, the service member can insure themselves up to $400,000 in the case of their passing. They can also opt in for family life insurance for the spouse and for children, which is a lower amount. And there is a very small premium for those amounts while you're active duty. It is a good idea to take a full, it's a really good benefit at a great price. But my recommendation would be when you're planning to leave the military, you need to start thinking about how you're going to replace that. When you leave the military and you lose your SGLI benefit, you can replace that with Veterans Group Life Insurance, which is VGLI, which is an option for some people if they have some health concerns or, can't figure out a way to otherwise, or they've waited too long. VGLI is a good option. But if you're proactive about leaving the military, getting your own private insurance would be a great idea to make sure that there's no gap in coverage. So, for instance, my husband retired, and there was a gap between the time that he was active duty and the time that he took on a civilian job. During that time, if he didn't have his own life insurance, he would have had a gap in protection. So now that he is employed and he has a civilian employer, that civilian employer has group life insurance on him, which covers him. However, if this is civilian world, if his boss says, sorry, we don't need you anymore tomorrow, then he's out of life insurance. So it's really good at any point in time to have your own life insurance that you carry with you. That's private.
That makes perfect sense.
So good question on the premiums. Those premiums are all based on your risk rating and your health, your age, your life expectancy. There's a lot of things that go into it. There's underwriting rules. I don't have that information, and it's different for each person. So that would be something on a personal one-on-one level that you would have to find out.
And you can just call insurance companies or any Google, and they'd be able to help you out.
Yes. And also the for the VGLI, there's a website there too, and it gives you kind of a range of the rates based on your are you a smoker or not smoker? Do you have specific health problems? But so you can at least get an idea, but you won't get a specific amount until you actually go through the process of underwriting.
Okay, all right. So another thing that came up in the questions was about spouse employment. There were things that came up as far as do spouses, can they use USA's job seeker app on this website, Work Finder, if they're retiring? Military spouses in general are just in a very odd situation, but retiree spouses are even in a weirder spot because it's kind of like, well, my spouse isn't retired. Well, he is retired, but that's all for him. What's available for me? Because I'm no longer really a military spouse anymore.
That's a very good point. And I know with Blue Star Families, USA has worked with Blue Star Families in the past few years with a survey and kind of really studying what military spouse employment looks like for active duty military spouses. And it's a challenge for us. It's a challenge, because it seems like we need to start over every single time we PCS, every time we move. It's hard to carry a career and grow with a company or a firm, or even within a certain career field. Sometimes there's challenges with licenses and registrations because they're state sponsored. And so if you move from one state to another, or even out of country, then you have those challenges on top of that. So we have those as an active duty spouse. And then we throw in the retirement. Okay, so now, now we're at the point where it's, well, what am I going to do? Do I have something for myself? I talked about that a little bit. I have a patchwork resume. I did lots of different types of jobs, and I'll call them jobs because nothing was going to build up to be a career, and they were all disparate, different types of jobs. I was a financial counselor on the military installation. I was a USO manager. I was a substitute school teacher. I've done a lot of different things, but none of those allowed me to save for my own retirement or to build up a potential for a pension. So now I'm at the point where, okay, it's my turn. So it's really important to have that conversation, because sometimes when you're deciding on where you'll live after retirement, it's not about the military spouse and where they will get a job. Sometimes it's about the civilian spouse and where they're going to get a job after retirement, because maybe now it's my turn. That's how it was in my family. I was blessed to get this wonderful job with USAA, and I was the transition plan for my family. I'm hoping that this is my career now. It's my turn, and my husband followed me. So to this location. This wasn't necessarily where we were going to end up, but this is where we are now because of me, and he followed me. So sometimes those conversations need to be had, and I will share that it is sometimes very challenging for military spouses to find jobs, because we are PCS and because we have licenses and registrations for other states. But if we persevere, we can be very snappy and scrappy, and find things that are out there. The things that we do as a military spouse, just the change management of moving our families from one location to the other, all of the budgeting and taking care of the household, all of that, that can build a resume and can be very valuable to a potential employer. So definitely leverage that while you're active duty and as your spouse gets ready to leave the military. what you're showing on that page here is our usa.com/leaving the military. It's a great resource for anybody who's getting ready to leave the military. You don't have to be retiring. You can just be separating. This is a great resource. But that third portion right there, find work with Job Finder, that is, it's really geared for the service member as they're trying to create their resume that translates their job in the military to a civilian job. You know, if you say I'm a, you know, intelligence officer, you know, working on XYZ, how do you translate that into something that you can be doing, I mean, in the civilian world? So you need to make sure that the HR people, not the people that are hiring, but the HR people for that company that you're applying to can understand what you bring to the table. So that Job Finder can help you with that translation of that resume. And then there's also jobs posted in there that you can, you know, apply to and search for. I will say that this is also available for military spouses. I have used this myself before I came to USAA, but it's an opportunity. You know, I can't benefit from the translation of a military job to civilian speak on a resume, but I can certainly benefit from the resume building and the potential for jobs applications through that site as well. So that's open for service members and spouses.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we are going to go through this a little bit more and kind of dive in with this page because there's so much information on here. I just want to get through a few more questions that came up. Impacts on children. I personally have 2 small children. My husband is getting ready to retire in October. We hope to stay where we're at, but we might not.
Right. And, you know, just PCSs are different, you know, for your kids, and you've had to manage that, and with your children, with changing schools, changing houses, changing friends, saying goodbye to their friends, all of that. It's, like I said, it's about change management and how you've had to handle that. Now you're in a situation where, okay, where are we going to live? And is that first job out of the military going to be the job? Is that going to keep us here, or are we going to need to move again? So you may feel like you're planting roots and becoming stable in one location, but you just never know what life might hand you. So having that ability to be flexible still with your kids is something that you need to keep that skill up. So just in case. But if you're growing long roots, then this is the time where you can help your kids, start building those long-lasting friendships, those long-lasting things that they're involved in, whether it's a sports club or, scouts or something like that. This is the opportunity to really help them embrace that area and become, just kind of settled, just like you and your spouse are getting settled. It's a good time to help them as well. My kids were in college as my husband was retiring, and so it was kind of a non-event for them. They're already away at college. We're here, we're settled, and they came home for the ceremony, and then they went back to school, and now they just come home to visit when they can. And but it's really a non-event for them. But for families that still have kids at home, it's a big, huge change. And so you want to make sure that you're looking at their emotions and the things that's going on with them, as well as yourself, because there's a lot of turmoil that might happen with them as well as yourself.
So hypothetically speaking,
yeah,
because I like to work in hypotheticals, especially right now. Especially right now. So if you're retiring or separating, you take a job, and then, or your spouse takes a job, and then maybe that job doesn't work out. How much do you think, on average, is probably good for savings? Like 6 months? Like, do you cover your bills? Do you kind of have a little bit extra? A year?
That's a really great question. So a normal emergency fund is recommended to have 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. So that's not including, your entertainment and going out, because all of those things will need to curtail if you really have an emergency and you need to tap into your emergency fund. But these are for your bills that you need to pay. You got to put a roof over your head, food on the table, pay your car, those kinds of things. So 3 to 6 months is a typical normal emergency fund. when you're leaving the military, or you feel that you're going to enter a volatile period of time in your life where maybe the job security isn't there, maybe you're unsure of what might come up next, maybe you need to move again in the future, having the 6 to 12 months and even more than that, worth of living expenses, stacked away to, in case that emergency comes up, or in case you have that gap, is really a great idea. So definitely, I would beef that up. We call it the transition fund. So we always talk about the emergency fund, but as you're getting ready to leave the military, we like to call it a transition fund, because it's there in case you have that gap. So we have a couple ways that you can save specifically. Right there, the military.
Right there, start saving for retirement.
If you click on the under the life.
Oh, that's fun. Yes.
Yeah, so that's an infographic, and it kind of just gives you these are the things that could come up. These are things that you don't necessarily think about in the military when you're in the military, like medical expenses. Oh, now you're going to have healthcare coverage that you need to pay for. Things are going to come up. You're not getting a housing allowance anymore, so that's tax-free. So now you have to include whatever benefit that would have been into what your compensation would be and what you're paying. So we have a couple tools that can help you with that savings goal. If you're being proactive and you can think about it, we can set up a savings goal, and then we can help you see your progress as you're getting closer to that goal. So as you're getting closer to retirement or separation, you would hope to see that creeping up and gaining in that balance. And then we have these other tools that are called Savings Booster that can do automatic transfers of money from your checking to your savings account to help you with that. It's kind of the out of sight, out of mind transfer. So, and then it makes it automatic, which makes it a little bit easier for you as well.
If you don't see it, you won't spend it.
That's right.
I do want to reiterate that you do not have to be a USAA member to use this. A lot of this stuff that's on here, unless you start to add personal information, as far as if you look at these first couple ones up here, like obviously your financial readiness score is going to need you to log in, your military separation assessment, but a lot of this stuff is actually free, and you can just kind of use it. You don't have to be a USAA member. Another box I kind of wanted to talk about was the additional resources, because it does have transition goals and plans and success, how you can find your military record, GI Bill information, actually Veterans Affairs information just in general, education benefits, housing, loans, all of that information can be found there. We do have some questions.
Yeah, sure. So let me share. Is someone talking? It sounded like somebody else was talking. Nope. Okay. So on this page, we are firm believers at USAA that you need to be proactive about your financial security and the financial impact that these changes, this life event, it's a life event that you're going to be going through, has on you. So you want to make sure that we want to make sure that we provide the tools that are available to help people make informed decisions and be proactive in taking charge of their finances. So that's why a lot of this is open and free for the general public, because we feel it's that important. Now, there's some things that we want to be able to personalize and give you more of a specific call to action, or a specific recommendation, or specific information for a better decision based on what we know about you or what you want to share with us. So those are the things that you need to log into, such as the military separation assessment. Let me tell you about that a little bit. So that will help you understand the benefits that you're leaving when you leave active duty, and that you'll have to replace on your own, such as the life insurance, such as health insurance. So even if you're retiring and you're going to still be eligible for Tricare, there's a cost increase as a retiree to use Tricare. So those are things that this separation assessment tool will share with you, so that you can kind of think about those things, because maybe you're on the fence about, is it the right time for me to retire or separate from the military? This can really help give you a good picture of where you stand financially and what that impact of leaving the military would be for your family. one of the kind of cool things I like about this, as we were figuring out where we would land, you can, it also accounts for your tax-free housing allowance and tax-free BAS, so that you can understand what your total compensation would be in a civilian world to maintain that same standard of living that you're living in now. So, so say we're stationed in San Antonio, that's where I'm at right now. We're stationed in San Antonio and we're thinking about leaving the military. Well, I'm from Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. My husband's from near St. Louis. So maybe there's something calling us back home to one of those places. So what I want to do is I want to go in and kind of see, well, what do I need to make in each location to set us up to live in the same manner that we're living in now. So what I can do is I can go in there into the military separation assessment tool, and I can put in San Antonio, where I'm at now, St. Louis, and Philadelphia. And it'll tell me if I'm doing XYZ job and I'm maintaining my standard of living that I'm living now, this is how much I need to make in San Antonio to make up for that tax-free benefit. And then this is how much I'm going to need to make in St. Louis and Philadelphia. So that can help you make an informed decision on where it is you're going to live after you leave the military.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking to see if there's some questions over here in the chat box, but I think you pretty much answered them as far as like the premium is concerned for 100% coverage. The monthly premium for VGLI, obviously, that's going to probably be on their website, and you're going to have to talk to them because it's going to be different for everybody.
All of that's very personalized based on your
situation. Right. For SBP, are the premiums the same for everyone? That's a really good question. If you have two different ranks and you're looking at two separate retirements that are different amounts of money, is that survivor's benefit plan the same across the board, or is it a percentage? Or
it is a percentage, and it's based on rank and time and what your how many years you have of service in. So it's based on that. It's not based on your health. What it is based on is your status at retirement. I saw another question come in.
Yeah, this one's a good one about loans.
Okay, so we don't have anything that's specific to that as far as a specific offering for that, but based on your credit and what you need, there may be a solution either with us or with somebody else. I would highly suggest staying away from payday loan places, though. That would be not a good idea. A better option would be to save ahead of time, especially if you've got a little bit of runway between now and your actual retirement or separation, to stash some money away to make sure you are covered so you don't have to rely on credit and pay additional for that.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate the question for Facebook Live. You don't see what's coming up in this chat box over here, but the question was, does USAA have any low interest loans for people who are retiring or transitioning out of the military?
No, nothing specific about that. But like I said, it's a good idea to have your own fund saved up for that prior to leaving the military. And 16 months, that gives you time. You can start today. There's no day better than today to start something like that.
Absolutely. I do have a question that came in over email about as far as like walking you through this retirement process. I know that sometimes retirees or people who are separating go to these TAP classes and they just don't come home and tell their spouses the information that they learned. So you're kind of on your own a little bit. And obviously, I would point them to the website because there's a lot of information on here as far as, life insurance and just planning, planning. But do you know of anything else that's out there?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'd really recommend that the civilian spouse attend TAP with their military member. It's really valuable information, and it really feels like it's a fire hose, shooting information at you, and you're trying to gather it all up and comprehend, and retain all of that. So having two people sitting there and hearing it can help understand and comprehend and retain some of that information that you get blasted at you in the course of a couple days. So highly recommend that. Beyond that, if you scroll up to the top of this page, there's a checklist. And so the military loves their checklist, right? So we have a checklist for everything. We have a checklist when we deploy. We have a checklist for PCS. We have a checklist for leaving the military. USAA has devised a checklist that really spearheads on the financial aspects of those impacts and when or what you should be doing at what point. Now, this checklist goes 24 months out prior to leaving the military. Now, if you only have 4 months left or 16 months left, like our one listener did, it will adjust and give you the most important things that you need to do now to catch up. So, but if you do have the 24 months, it will give you the whole 24 months. This is what you do each month to prepare yourself financially for that. And this is a great tool that both the service member and the spouse can utilize and just kind of keep track of where you're going. We love lists and we love to check them off. We love it at the end when it's all checked off. But this is a great opportunity. It will, if you're logged in and you're a member, it will save where you're at so that when you come back to it, you'll see exactly what's the next thing I need to do.
Great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. I want to move on to another question. This probably is going to be a little more specific towards home buying, but as far as USAA is concerned, what kind of help can they give the transitioning military member or retiree as far as buying a house, using the VA loan, all of that information?
So a lot of that is really based on your personal credit situation and your history. USAA does offer mortgages. We offer VA mortgages. We work with the VA to provide that benefit. And we also have other types of mortgages that may or may not be better for your situation. What I would really like to strongly encourage, though, is while you're active duty, I would definitely pay attention to your credit. Make sure that you're managing any debt that you're building up and trying to pay it off as much as you can. Zero debt balance is always a good thing. Managing that credit and having a good credit report, credit score is definitely a good thing. If you're thinking about buying a house when you separate or you retire, I would certainly add to that transition fund additional money to put away towards a down payment. Even if you don't need one with the VA, it's still a good idea because it lowers your monthly costs. And then also, as a homeowner, Murphy still comes to the door even after the military. So having that emergency fund for the bigger things that could break, such as an air conditioner or a hot water heater, things like that, I would highly recommend that that fund gets beefed up. Maybe you have a separate house emergency fund for something like that. But so here's some of the difference as you're applying for a mortgage. You'll need to have good credit, and there's standards and there's underwriting, which I don't have that information to share with you, but each institution has its own standards on underwriting. So having good credit score, having a good credit history, showing that you're a low risk, that you will be paying things back on time, all the time, and having the income to support having that mortgage. And that's the clincher right there. So if you're separating from the military and your income stops and you have a gap before your next job, you may not be qualified for a mortgage at that point because you don't have the sufficient income to provide that lender the confidence that you're going to be able to repay that back. Same goes with a retirement. If you're looking for this much of a house, but your pension only covers this much of a house, that lender may look at that and say that you're not qualified for this much of a house because you only have this much coming in. Now, if you have a pension and a civilian income coming in, that's a whole different conversation because it's what you have coming in today, not what's promised or what may be coming. It's what do I have today when I apply? How do I sit today?
Great. Thrift savings plan. Uh-oh. This is a big one too. There's people were just asking questions about what's the difference between the thrift savings plan and a regular retirement, and can I take my TSP if I'm just separating after 4 years, or do I have to stay, or what's the tax liability? I mean, there are a lot of questions out there. So let's high-level overview. What is the difference between a TSP and a pension?
Okay, so great question. And it is a very hot topic and something that we should all familiarize ourselves with better. So a TSP is a thrift savings plan. It is similar to a 401k that a civilian employer would offer to help you save for your own retirement. So in the TSP, you have to opt in. You have to contribute money to it. I won't even get into the whole blended retirement system because that's for people who are joining the military or have a little bit of time left. That's a whole nother conversation. We'll have another webinar for that. But for the people who are leaving the military, most likely you're under the regular retirement system and are looking at either a pension if you have at least 20 years in, or maybe using your TSP that you've contributed to on your own. So the pension is a defined benefit based on the fact that you've served so many years and provided that service to the military. That's your payment back, a pension, a lifetime pension for that service. The TSP is really a self-funded retirement, just like a 401k would be. And it's basically whatever you put into it, that's what you're going to get back out of it. When you leave the military, chances are you're not going to be at that age to take out the money without without some kind of a fee or a fine, because the 401ks and IRAs and TSPs really start at 59 and a half for you to start taking withdrawals from that to supplement your retirement without a penalty. And then, of course, at the age of 70 and a half, you have to start taking at least some minimum withdrawals. So there's that window of time. Now, most people leave the military before they're 59 and a half. So what do I do with my TSP when I get out of the military? Well, it really depends. The TSP is a really great fund. It's very low cost. You have options on how you can invest inside the TSP. It's a really great vehicle. Some people think that they can do better on their own and they want to transfer that over to a private IRA. You can do that. You can roll it over. You can roll it over to some other type of fund. Definitely, you can do that. You can also just let it sit. You can't contribute anymore to the TSP if you're not active duty. However, you can still, you can let that sit and you can change the allocation. If I'm all in this fund and I want to spread it out or whatever, you can do that throughout its lifetime, but you can let that sit until you're at that age to start taking those withdrawals. You can also, and this is the thing we don't recommend, is just to withdraw it. If you do that, you'll have to pay taxes, of course, on any of the, if it went in, if your contributions were prior to tax, now you have to pay tax on that. If there's any gains, you'll have to pay taxes on that. And then there's also penalties and fees that you'll have to pay for withdrawing it early. So, and that can be pretty hefty. 10% is a typical fee, and your taxes will typically be about 25% or so. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about just pulling it out. And for some people, that's their last resort, but I would really consider that as a last resort to take that out because they hadn't had time to save for their emergency. Something happened that was out of their control. So sometimes that has to be an option, but it's not the first option. It's probably a last resort.
Okay, so pretty much if I understood you correctly, once you leave active duty, you cannot contribute to the TSP later.
Right.
That was definitely one of the questions that came up about, getting ready to separate. We didn't do it before, can we do it now?
So if you become a government civilian, a GS employee, there is a separate TSP program for them. And yes, you can contribute to that, but your active duty account that you've been contributing to, no longer. But you can let that sit and grow and work for you for the years until it's time to retire.
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense that it would be available for active duty, and once you're done, can't go back.
Just like I have a 401k at USAA, I contribute to that. But if I leave USAA tomorrow, I can no longer contribute to that.
All right. Another question that we had come up was about, as a military spouse, and it's just a very stressful time, separation, transitioning out of the military, retirement. Is there anything that a spouse can do on their own to kind of help a little bit with the whole process? Can they go and get an ID card on their own? Can they go and, look up life insurance policy and kind of do that whole research without the member spouse?
So certainly, military spouse can certainly do a lot of those things on their own, and highly recommend that you do. As we're going through our phases in life, whether it's PCS deployment or leaving the military, I would hope that the spouse has a say in the family finances, has some self-control over, what their future might look like, whether it's, saving for their own retirement, having their own life insurance to take care of their family, things like that. So as you're leaving the military, as your spouse is leaving the military, it's still important for you to take care of those things, and you can definitely do those things on your own. Whether it's, taking out a policy for yourself, making sure that you have enough emergency fund to take care of the uh-ohs that happen, the gaps in coverage that you have, understanding what the healthcare situation looks like, whether it's a retirement and you're going to continue with Tricare. There's additional fees that you'll incur for that. If you're like me and have a child who's out of college now and over a certain age but younger than 26, what does Tricare Young Adult look like, and what cost is that? So there's a lot of changes that come up, and it's really important for us spouses to understand that. Frankly, my spouse and a lot of military people that I know, you are committed and you are going very strong all the way till the very last day that you're wearing that uniform, because there's a mission to do, right? And we are in a high ops tempo situation in the world right now. So even though they're supposed to be going through TAP and going through this actual transition, there isn't a lot of time for them to start taking all of this in. And it's really important for the spouse to be proactive and really understand a lot of that. Going back to the ID card thing, I know that there is a way that a spouse can go and get their own, but the service member has to do some pre-work before they can go do that. But I don't know all the rules, so I don't want to speak to that.
Perfect. We do have some questions. Do you see them down there in the question and answer box?
Yes. Okay. So this is for after. The question is, does Tricare offer any kind of tail health insurance for spouse and children after retirement until we're covered by another agency? So after retirement, the spouse and the children under 26 are eligible for Tricare as well under the Tricare retirement. So you can continue with Tricare in a retirement situation. If you're separating from the military, yes, there is a tail health insurance that covers you during that gap. And it'll be offered to your service member to take care of their own insurance needs and their family's insurance needs. So yes, there is that. But if you're talking specifically about retirement, you want to take a look at what the retiree Tricare looks like for you.
Thanks. So we are actually getting close to time here. I don't know if you want to take maybe just one more question. And then,
yeah, that hour went fast. My goodness.
Yeah. This is a huge topic, and we could probably have 3 or 4 webinars on it.
Maybe we'll need to do that.
You bet.
Any other questions come up?
Here's one about teacher contributions to a state retirement plan. How should she handle it when she moves? I don't know if that's something that you can cover or speak to.
Not really. That would fall into talking with a financial advisor on what's best for your situation. Same thing when the military person is leaving the military and you have questions about what should I do with my TSP. This is a similar situation for a teacher. So it really depends on your situation and what that looks like for you and what impact that would be for you. I would certainly talk to someone in a financial advisor capacity to at least help you make an informed decision.
All right. And does USA offer financial advisors that you can contact
Yes.
and kind of work all this out?
Absolutely. Yes, we do. So our number is 1-800-531-8722. You can also go to our website. It's usaa.com. And if you go usaa.com/leaving the military, you'll come to this page that Liz is showing here that can get you access to all of these tools. And of course, the phone number is at the bottom of the page. So if you have additional questions or you want to talk to someone about your specific situation, you can certainly do that.
And I highly recommend that you do that as far as calling and getting some financial advice to kind of go ahead and sort all of this out, because it is a lot. There's a lot of information out there. One thing before we have to log off here, I wanted to talk about downloading the Leaving the Military Guide. So about 2 weeks ago when I got this email or this web address from USA, when I started to work with Ingrid, I downloaded this and I started reading it and I was like, everything's here. Answer tons of questions right in front of my face. So I definitely highly recommend that. Again, Ingrid, the website is usaa.com/leaving the military. It's actually what it is. It comes up a little bit different here.
Correct. And PDF guide, that's available to anybody. If you fill in some information, you can get the PDF so you can download. So it's available to anybody.
Yes, awesome.
Very good resource.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know if there are more questions out there, please reach out to me at ljones@bluestarfam.org, and I will forward them to Ingrid, and if we can find you an answer, we'll get you an answer. Do you have anything else?
No, I think we had a great conversation today. I look forward to potentially more. As you said, we could talk for hours about this. We could talk for hours about PCSing. We could talk for hours about deployment. But this is a huge topic that is a life changer. And it's really important for everybody to get as much information as they can so that they can make good decisions as they're going along.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ingrid. And it was great to see you again. Like I said, additional questions, please send them to me in an email. And have a great afternoon, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thanks. Thanks for having me, Liz.
Bye. Thank you.